technologies, and social inclusiveness. This we do with our ability to learn and unlearn, with the effort to investigate, and with the commitment to transfer knowledge to all the actors that make up the city. And at the heart of the triangle, we have always put the citizens. Today, we want to thank the cities that had inspired us, the cities that we have imagined, the cities that we have suffered. But for the IAAC, cities are nothing without people. Today is a day to give thanks to many for many things. I want to thank our students who allow us to make our purpose come true. I want to thank the founders, and especially Vicente, with whom we talked a lot about IAAC when it was just an idea in his mind. I want to thank all the people who are today the IAAC community, our directors, Willy, Areti, Tomas, our professors and researchers, our staff, led by Josep Maria Romero, our alumni, all the members of the different board of trustees, the presidents who have preceded me, and of course, to all of you who join us today. In this event, the leading role is for those who do the IAAC every day. I give the stage to them. We come from afar, and we are going even farther, without doubt. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone. Gracias.
Xavier, thank you very much. I would like to say also welcome to Ana Ibañez, that is member of the board, that is here, and Angel Fernandez, that is also the secretary of the board, that is here. And then I will be managing or acting as conductor of this event. So what I will be doing is sharing the screen also in order to see some images and some different things. So first thing I would like to do is to share the screen, because we have this is everyone will be speaking today. There will be some small changes because with 20 people, there are always some problems, people that are not able to join in the last minute. But the first thing is that we have a message from the rector, from the president of the Polytechnic University, that they have been always our partners from the very beginning. So Francesc Torres is a mathematician and today is the president of the Polytechnic University, and he has a message.
Ladies and gentlemen, 20 years ago, the Institute for Advanced Architecture of Catalonia, IAAC, started its activities with the first master's degree. It was entitled Advanced Architecture and Digital Cities postgraduate program, with its scope embedded in the title of the program, underlying innovation and research. Its inauguration sessions included a video conference with the MIT, something that today we find so normal, and that it was almost impossible at that time to carry out at home. And it was finally conducted as a multiple conference format in the headquarters of the Spanish company Telefónica. The innovative spirit has been present since then in all the programs offered by the IAAC. I want to highlight the success of UPC Rector, Diez, together with his chief of staff, Xavier, who is now the president of the IAAC, to provide the institutional support to make it possible. Its activities were managed through the Fundació Politécnica de Catalunya, and in this way, the first private master's degree with the endorsement of a public university was inaugurated. This year marks the 50th anniversary of our university. which was created by combining traditional engineering, science, and architecture studies. It is a pleasure to be able to have the Barcelona School of Architecture at the UPC, where many good professors have studied, also from the IAAC, and above all, Antonio. I know that the MIT professor Neil Gershenfeld claimed that the Gaudí was researching the reorganization of matter in his testing laboratory at the Colonia Well in Santa Coloma de Cervelló. This is something that we are presently doing through technology. Thus, beyond being an architect, Gaudí brings an important legacy recognized today of multidisciplinarity, from ergonomic design to the most complex structures inspired in nature. In the same direction, the IAAC also has many innovative concerns based on our universal architecture. Let me just finish by stating that IAAC is a very positive asset for our university. IAAC prestige helps us year after year to be the best university in architectural studies in Spain and among the best in the world. So, happy birthday.
Well, thank you very much, Rector, because as we say, we collaborate from the very beginning. Many times we start collaborating more with engineers than not with architects, but I think that after many years, these relations has changed and has improved. And now I would say that we have a very deep and intense collaboration. And now I would like to invite Neil Gershenfeld, that in fact with him start everything, because we decided the first year we meet him and we were talking about experimenting how to imagine how digital world will change cities, and that's why we start that collaboration that has that until today is still very productive. So Neil, the floor is yours.
Great. So I'm happy to see so many friends. I'm sorry we're not together. We should all make a rain check to rejoin and meet in Barcelona when we can. Reflecting on 20 years, two phrases come to mind. In English, we talk about moving the goalposts for our version of football. And so moving the goalposts is, they're goalposts and you would get a goal, but moving the goalposts is moving them far away, and so you get there and you don't even get the goal because you have to go further. Or climbing out on a branch. There's a branch and you want to go further away and you don't know if the branch will hold up, so you start climbing out and it's creaking and it may break, but you go further on the branch. And that's how I would describe IAAC. 20 years has been experts in moving goalposts and climbing out on branches. So for me, it started with, I got an award out of the blue, and I just realized it's still in my office. And this funny award was something that didn't really exist, that I came to understand they made up to give this award. And based on that, we did this media house project, which was this kind of crazy idea of let's make a structure, and the structure will transmit forces, energy, and information. And it was maybe the biggest screen ever made at the time, and we made this media house. And really what came out of that is the Internet of Things. So the team that worked on this did a lot of the pioneering work on what's become a globe-spanning industry. And so there's really a very strong connection between the Media House project and the birth of the principles of the Internet of Things. The team went directly into working with the founders of the Internet on this architecture of IoT. So that's what came out of that directly. But then what came out of it is IAAC. And I'll share a secret. There's this rousing origin story of the origin of IAAC, but it was really just to get a warehouse for a machine. That there was a need to do prototyping on a bigger scale that needed a bigger machine. The bigger machine needed a warehouse. The warehouse needed an organization, and thus IAAC was born. And so this next picture was my kids visiting early on Grace and Eli to go visit IAAC. So IAAC was born, and we're here to celebrate 20 years of that. It was one of the first Fab labs before we knew what a Fab lab was. So we started there, and it's grown to over 2,000 Fab labs in 125 countries. It's come to be called Lass's Law for Sherry Lassiter. You'll hear more from her. And from these first labs, it started this exponential growth spanning the world. We didn't have a plan for a world revolution, but that's what's happened. And if you could mute, yeah, thanks. So that was one of the first Fab labs. And then another one of the really early ones was in Lima with Victor and Benno and team. And this was another moving goalposts. Spain had been doing aid with mixed results, and Vicente had this great idea of, rather than giving money, let's give a lab. And so found bright youth from Peru, brought them to Barcelona, trained them, and sent them back with the lab. And there was this wonderful moment when they came back, and Uni there said, okay, here's the lab, here's the rules, here's what you can do. And they said, no, it's our lab. If you behave, we'll share it with you. And that really led to this Fab Lab movement. Young leaders from across Latin America really remaking a continent. So then from rapid prototyping, it grew, and in the lower left is a picture of the Fab house. So we weren't really thinking about rapid prototyping on the scale of the built environment, but there was this project Tomas and many others led to really bring rapid prototyping up to the built environment. It almost killed the lab. It was a miserable experience. But then it won the People's Choice Award in the Solar Decathlon. The only reason it didn't win the Energy Efficiency Award is this was the one structure everybody liked and spent their time around. And they made everything in the lab except for the control system. They didn't feel like they could safely do that. And that was the one thing that wasn't reliable and they should have made in the lab. So that was rapid prototyping on the scale of the built environment. And so from there, the natural next step was for Vicente to become the architect of Barcelona, to plan not just the lab, but this profound step to the city of not simply complaining about issues in governance, but in effect taking over the government. Barcelona has this fabulous history of design sense, but also history of economic issues, and this vision of a very different path to growth emerged from that. And so this notion of Barcelona had turned into a product to trash conversion device. Products would go in one side and trash would go out the other side. And the vision that emerged was data goes in, data goes out, the bits come and go, but the atoms stay. So from products in, trash out, to data in, data out, really giving a vision for a profound notion of a new economy, how the means of production are democratized. If you live in the city can provide electricity or clean water, but it can now provide the means to make, empowering this very different notion of an economy. And so from there, as that vision grew, and as this network grew, once a year the labs would meet, and Fab 10, we all hosted in Barcelona. And the picture in the middle is then Mayor Trias starting again what was one of these hacks. We had this idea of he should push a button in the meeting, and we weren't even quite sure what it would do. But we thought about, well, what if we had this countdown to cities producing what they consume? And after it was done, there was some debate of whether it was producing some or everything. And I'm in the school, the countdown is to produce everything. And then we had to kind of guess, well, let's see, 40 years. 40 years is long enough we could hope to live that long, but it's beyond any one administration, so it's a safe boundary. So we put together this hack of he pushed the button, and that became the Fab City movement. And lo and behold, many, if not most now, of the leading cities all over the world have joined this Fab City movement, profoundly changing the notion of what is a city. There's been lots of work on smart cities, and that's nice, they're smart, but Fab Cities does this profound step of you can't eat or live in smart, but making what you eat and what you live in. So the Fab City movement grew out of that, and you'll hear much more about that from Tomas and colleagues and how much that spawned. And then in turn, next to that is in Pobla now, from just making the lab, now what's emerging is really planning a district around this notion of sustainable production and the means to make being democratized, and the atoms stay while the bits come and go. And well, I certainly don't consider myself an urbanist. Barcelona is really where urbanism was born. And what's emerging here is, I keep saying the word profound, but again, this is a profound new sense of what is urbanism, a much, a remarkable sense of urbanism, of this ability to go from bits to atoms and atoms to bits. So from there comes the question of where do the atoms come from? Where do the materials, if we're going to replace global supply chains? And the picture up in the corner is Vicente and me in early days in Valdora, and Barcelona discovering all around it was what used to be forests and farms and all this infrastructure that provides all these materials that can be remade. And so that led to the Green Fab Lab and really pioneering this notion of how you can think globally, but fabricate locally. So then come the skills to do that. And in the early days, I would have remote video connections to the How to Make class at MIT. And then we had a problem when there were more Fab Labs than students in the class. And so in the bottom middle is a workshop with a number of interesting people. Sitting at the table is Adrian Boyer, the inventor of RepRap. In the back is, if you look carefully, is a very young Tomas Diez. And this was a workshop that led to the idea of the Fab Academy. And that was a big step. You can think of MIT as a mainframe. You come here for processing. Massive online classes are like time sharing. You're a terminal connected to a mainframe. This was really a vision of education that's like an internet. It's an educational network. Students have peers with mentors in labs locally, and then you connect them globally in an internet of education, a distributed educational model. And so that gave rise to the birth of the Fab Academy that's grown and grown. It spawned Fabric Academy with Anastasia and Cecilia and beloved Fiore. It spawned the Bio Academy, so textile technology, biotechnology, this growing set of distributed classes. A name was a joke called the Academy of Almost Anything, and the name has stuck for Academeni. And again, back in Barcelona, Luciano and team and colleagues and the computing infrastructure group are anchoring this global educational movement that's really challenging both traditional institutions, but in a really interesting way now, traditional educational institutions are accrediting what we're doing in Fab Academy as our global new kind of credential, but recognized in their traditional system, and spawning off jobs and businesses and projects and initiatives coming out of that. So I take away from that history, I didn't expect any of this. And so I'm not even going to try and predict the next 20 years. Usually I kind of have a sense of technology roadmaps. None of this, this was all moving goalposts and climbing out on branches. And I didn't see any of those steps coming from any of these projects, but it's been a wonderful ride. So I won't try to predict the next 20, but I hope to be around to see it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Very good introduction. And now we will move to Artur. In fact, Artur was in the early visits that we have. You can see here in the left picture, in the early visit discussing the media house with Enric, Ruiz, and Artur and myself discussing about the project. And here we have the picture with the last day, well, the opening day of the media house. Artur, can you share your ideas about this moment? Because I remember that you make us the key question, no? How digital world is going to change architecture and cities. Mm-hmm. And that's why we start somehow IAAC to answer that question that you posed to us.
Yes, Vicente. There was a time, there was a group called Metapolis. Metapolis were three architects that were at that time thinking about the future. And the alternatives were becoming professor in a university or creating something new. And I strongly recommend this group establishing a lab. Because what I learned at Carnegie Mellon, I spent several years there, is that the future of the knowledge society are the labs, all kind of labs. And education and teaching is a consequences of the lab. And then I suggested, we just started the I2CAT project at that time, and I suggested Vicente building a lab. Gaudí has a lab, as the rector says, he's in Colonia well. Maybe he didn't have a master, but he had a lab. And from this lab, he experimented the radical new architectures. And if you follow this path of Gaudí, it was the need of a lab. We have already a school of architecture, but not a lab. And I think IAAC has played this role of so new because they have this kind of new social structure of the knowledge society. And this is my point. I come in from the internet family. I am internet guy. And what I've learned is internet is not only an information and communication network, it's actually a collaboratory, as William Wolf said at the beginning of the 90s. It's a kind of big lab where everyone can develop their own ideas, their own innovations, be Fab Lab, Edu Lab, City Lab, Living Labs. It's the well of labs, it's the well of knowledge. And this is the well IAAC is playing very well.
And Artur, well, you was also in that picture when the Fab Academy start. And also I remember the collaboration with Sebastián Sallent, that yes. You were founder of the Internet 2 environment or lab in Catalonia. But I remember that you say, you should not do education, you should do just research. And I told you, well, it's very difficult to do research if you don't have a group or a place where you can develop things. So we are architects, we want to do projects with young people. We should start with education and later we'll do more research because our education is research. Right now, in fact, about the economics at IAAC, we have 50-50 with IAAC, with education and with research. So somehow we are there. It took some years, but we are there. So what do you think about this?
Well, my point is that Catalonia is a very young country beginning in the research and innovation community. And this is why I stress the importance, because we have a long tradition of teaching, universities, but the research and innovation is a new kind of culture that we need to learn. And it's needed to understand that the American universities, especially the research universities, they call them research universities because they are research universities. And education is a consequence of this character of research university. MIT, Carnegie Mellon, Stanford, they are not the kind of universities we have here in Spain or in Europe. They are new type of universities. These are labs, mainly they are labs, okay? And what they teach is what they do in the lab, not the other way around. We have the idea that you are a teacher and then you have sometimes some papers and produce some research, but this is totally different in Carnegie Mellon, MIT, etc. They are labs that teach. And I think this is a little bit what I suggested, that beginning with the research, because if not, you will be a traditional routine professor of any kind of Spanish university. And I think finally you have a lot of success with the Fab Labs community because it's a lab and it's very well anchored in the city of Barcelona. And from this kind of experiment, you can develop more creative teaching that in the other way around.
So I always explain that I was lucky because I studied in a quite bad university because I didn't have great teachers. And that's why I thought myself, I should change the rule. We should change the rule. We should somehow rethink how to teach. And that's why these images are part of our education experience, that is students working with us, as this is something we share always with Neil, this idea that we do research and we learn with the students. So, thank you very much. And now we move to Manuel, because Manuel is another co-founder. I think that the Media Lab that we did the first year and the Hyper Catalonia that we did the second year represent very well what we say about this idea, the multi-scalar approach, no? 100 years ago was founded Bauhaus, and they say that they were doing this multi-scalar approach, designing from the spoon to the cities. And we say that at IAAC, we were designing or thinking from bits to geography. So Manuel, can you share your experience, because when we start the educational program, we already had at least 3 books that somehow, especially the Metapolis Dictionary, changed very much the idea of what architecture should be. Can you share your thoughts about that?
You see me because I don't. Yes.
Yes.
Well, Vicente, well, perfect. Xavier, thanks very much with this choral event. I think I'm going to the point. Yes, in fact, I remember that it was in 2002, more or less in the summer, that we received an urgent call from the government of the Generalitat. The Generalitat had collaborated, in fact, with the Media House project presented in 2001. And at the same time, they had followed the works and activity of this Metapolis Association that Artur talked, founded in 1998 together with you, Vicente, and with Willy, accompanied at the beginning with Ramon, Enric Ruiz, and Xavier Costa in a very initial moment. These actions and these works, as Artur said, were driven from the need to create a new cultural and educational impulse to an architectural field that was transforming its own logic with the advent of the digital or informational age. And effectively, we need a new cultural, a new transmission, and a new kind of formats to explain this. No? From the government of the Generalitat, I think that there was people as Antoni Vives, I remember, Pere Torres, Francesc, etc., that had understood more or less this paradigm shift and being attentive to our public manifestations. The idea was always to celebrate new ideas with other scientific and artistic disciplines, and in particular with the city and the citizens. And well, they were very surprised by the dictionary you showed before. The dictionary, it was published in 2001, and this book, very, very difficult to find now, the Barcelona Metapolis, that was the first Metapolis action, in fact. And they were absolutely interested in this kind of expressive and communicative works. Our interlocutors of the Generalitat, and this is the HiCat project, had been very impressed of this direct force of hub and conviction between strategies in net and set, for new battle maps, in the case of Barcelona Metapolis for Barcelona. The taste that we have, the taste that they have gave us was to think about how the territorial development of Catalonia should be oriented with a new vision 2000 to 2050. And wow, wow. We had 1 year to develop the project, to be present in October 2003 to the public in a big exhibition. Many people still believe that the Hypercatalunya Resource Territories operations, that the title HiCat was adopted in a fantastic brainstorming session, was the first IAAC grid challenge. And in a way, it was the first. But in fact, it was a transitional collective goal, because in reality, it was carried out and coordinated from the proto-IAAC, called in this moment IAM, Institute of Advanced Architecture Metapolis, a research center founded for Metapolis, but not totally officially. Also, the Master in Advanced Architecture and Digital Cities has been recognized thanks to Artur Serra, to be sincere, and the IDOSCAD of the UPC. I think that we had a first great intuition to understand the project not as a simple professional commission, but as a great choral and shared research challenge associated with the official recognition of the current IAAC, Institute for Advanced Architecture of Catalonia, as finally it was called from the end of the process, was officialized. I think we also had another great decision, that of opening the project we could do, but in fact we opened the project from the local conditions to the global volitions with the ambition of a large prospective consultation launched to 21 international teams, very close of the strategic ask launched to them. We also had the great decision of not leaning this project on great glamorous names or design stars, but on teams that were then emerging and today they are very, very well recognized as, I don't know, Enric DV, Van Barkel and Boss, evidently Avalos Herreros, I don't know. A lot of people that we don't have time to express. But they were people of Barcelona, of Madrid, of Murcia, but also of London, of Holland, of France, of States, of Korea, Kim Jong, etc., etc. No? All these people were emerging in this moment, and we understand that the important was to include these emerging teams that were understanding that the goal was to combine professional and experimental prisms. And this inclusion of emerging teams was also combined with a truly horizontal way, with the contribution of the students and young researchers of the IAAC coming from various disciplines. And in this sense, we don't have time, but this was a fantastic interdisciplinary scientific council with Alfonso Cornell, Albert Cortina, Andreu Fernandez, Xavier Mayor, Don Antonio Sanchez, Artur Serra, Andreu Bolliet, and I want to talk about the ill-fated Jose Miguel Iribas that was very involved in this project.
Manuel,
in any case,
sorry, we need to finish because
well,
we need to respect like around 5 minutes everyone.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, I know, Vicente, I know.
Okay, no, we need to finish now.
Well, but we finish, no problem.
Okay. So yeah, again, I think that all these new dimension that we had at that moment was fundamental to start our program and IAAC and so on. So thank you, Manuel. And now 2004 was another important moment, is when we bought our first CNC. Because at that moment, in parallel to, all our research, we were friends with many architects. Greg Lynn also was involved. Greg should be connected right now. He's in LA, but he said he cannot join, although I think he cannot join. And Greg was teaching at that moment in Columbia. He was working with robotics. He was working with parametric design. He's one of the lead person on this liquid architecture and parametric design. And I remember Greg because we wanted to buy a CNC and we didn't know how to do it and where to do it. And in fact, Greg was helping us to buy a Prefix machine from Canada. And then we were sending to Barcelona. This was before, I would say, the standards of the Fab Labs were created. And obviously, after that, we have been following the standard for Fab Labs. But this was our first CNC machine, and this was the really beginning of the lab. Maybe this was the opening of the Fab Lab in the year 2007, but this is how dry and void was everything. And this is the CNC machine that now it seems that during some years didn't work, and we are going to save it in a kind of in the IAAC museum if we have. I don't know if we have it, but if not, we should start to create it, because this was that machine that say nil that we need to put somewhere, and then finally we found this big space. So we had only one machine and that big space and some few students. And this is how I would say all these stories start. But then let's move in parallel to this. We have Willy, the year 2005. We had our first international trip as IAAC. Willy was also the other co-founder of IAAC. So Willy, that year we did a first trip to Brazil. Can you talk about this?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. Thanks, Vicente. I will talk in something about the study trips because I had the honor to organize the first IAAC study trip. In the first official IAAC master degree, we decided to include a week of travel for the whole course to a place to investigate. Generally, in the first year, we traveled to countries in a particular map of the world. At that time, we call these emergent territories. I remember we say, for example, the new Asian tigers, Taiwan, Korea, the Arab mirror of the Mediterranean, like Tunis, the new iron wall in Europe, Balkans and Bulgaria, and the BRICS, and particularly Brazil and India. That was the last city that we visited, and like an IAAC studies together. After India, we decided to separate the different studio in different trips. Just the last year, unfortunately, no. I hope the next year we come back on road, no. As I said, I had the honor to organize the first IAAC study trip, and the destination was Brazil. We organized an alliance between two research centers, IAAC, of course, and Artesidade from Sao Paulo, and two universities, Minas Gerais University and Espírito Santo U. At that time, we're talking about the confronting the old Pan American vision with the North-South axis. The Pan American Highway is an example, against the Trans-American vision. The axis east-west, more productive and more logistical. No? We decided to investigate one of these parallel axes to the Panama Channel. And finally, we make a trip of 1,000 kilometers following the Rio Doce Valley in a very old yellow bus with more than 40 students and professors from 4 different institutes on board, studying the environmental impact of the large open-air mineral extractions with huge excavators. I remember driving only by women, and their logistical movement with automatic trains, crossing small towns, of course, without any benefit for them. No? And then, altogether, an amazing disaster scenario. No? I had 1,000 stories to tell you about this trip that we make with our 7 students in the first year, real pioneers to remember today, and take profit to send them my best regard wherever they are. No? Of course, with a group of professors out of me and Manuel, like Laura Cantarella, I don't know, Laura is connected, who make beautiful photos of the trip, Luis Falcón, Luis Echeverria, Jordi Mancilla, Roger Paez, Ana Pla, and a special mention for dear friend who passed away, the sociologist Miguel Iribas. From a video lecture by Oscar Niemeyer, still alive from Rio, in the famous dance house pavilion in the Pampulha Lake in Belo Horizonte, to even how Iribas managed to open bars for us in Ipachinga, like a small village in Brazil, at 3 in the morning. That was an amazing trip. Other times, of course, no. But I want to share with you today a personal and funny anecdote very fast. As many of you know, at that time, Manuel didn't like to travel by plane. He changed, Manuel. Today, he is a professional. So me and Vicente convinced him to travel all together and telling him, come on, Manuel, it's a mistake to stay alone in Barcelona because you will miss the first institutional trip of IAAC. And of course, took effect. Of course, I knew that Vicente was not coming with us because at that time, IAAC was a place under construction with many friends waiting to destroy it. And some of us had to stay in Barcelona to take care of the house. That was literally like that. The day that we had to travel, I went to Manuel's house in a taxi, remember? And when didn't see Vicente, he began to get nervous. Of course, I tried to convince him that Vicente would arrive just before boarding, but it was useless. He began to describe in detail what would happen next in order. The plane crashes in the middle of the Atlantic Sea. Everybody dies. Nobody can recover our bodies. I remember this comment. And finally, he said, oh no, Vicente will be the only one to tell the history of the IAAC, literally. In short, it's a personal memory that from time to time we remember with Vicente and Manuel, and that perhaps explains very well the psychological genealogy of this adventure of IAAC. Someone says that in life, you learn much more from failures than from successes. but we celebrated today an exception. The IAAC is a success story. It's my personal success story too, from which we learn and teach during the first 20 years, and probably will continue to do so in the future. Thank you so much. Gracias, Vicente.
Thank you, Willy. Well, the good news is that we will have many people talking about the story. It's not only me, everyone survived. And we are building, there are more and more people building that story. And then we have Lucas Cappelli, that was alumni from the second year. And then he had an incredible idea that changed IAAC. Lucas is not here with us, but he gave a video. You will see what story he will explain us.
Bueno, feliz cumpleaños IAAC, feliz cumpleaños family, happy birthday to all the family. And IAAC has been always for me this, I mean, the family I found in Barcelona when I moved here from home, and I discovered this new home. And for me, it's basically amazing to notice how this character that in a way we mixed together has remained for so long almost intact. Like this strength, exceptional strength that I feel that IAAC has. This unusual rebel capacity of always questioning everything has been always for me a trademark of us, and this attitude towards every problem, that like everything is impossible, everything impossible is possible, like there are no limits. I mean, I'm very glad to see that after all these years, nothing has basically changed about that. Even when you said at that time, I mean, the first years when we started the competition, I remember we were in 2005 or something, and 2006. I felt this passion and this super strength energy that made me feel that we were invincible. And at the same time, we were so few, like we were so small. We're still small, but we were so small at the time. So when we started this competition, I remember one of the ideas was to bring all this magic to the world in a way to make it expanded. And it was actually at the end a super incredible experience. I'm so proud of the community we have created. I'm so proud of all of us, and I wish us a very happy birthday, and remember always, like, the sky is the limit, and we can make whatever we ever propose us to make. So keep the spirit super high and keep always this amazing attitude, and super love you and super happy birthday. IAAC forever!
Okay, so this is Lucas Cappelli, that today is member of the board. And now we come to Tomas Diez, that today is the Fab Lab director, but obviously he had a long story of evolution inside the IAAC. So Tomas, yeah, can you explain your experience from the very beginning until today? That's a parallel story to the Niels story, I would say, but please go ahead.
Yeah, many connections. But yeah, I was supposed to be at IAAC for 5 months. I arrived to IAAC in September 2006, and I was supposed to finish my degree of urbanism and then go back to Venezuela. And I usually say that I was in the wrong meeting at the wrong moment. By that time, there was a meeting of the board of directors, and I was invited just to share some lunch. And then someone needed to set up a Fab Lab, and there were many directors, and there was only someone that could do the task of taking a pile of papers with all the inventory. And I say, okay, yeah. And then when I started to read about it, I finally made sense about what really urbanism means to me. Like, it's not about making just beautiful cities or thinking just about the space, but also thinking about how cities function. And I don't know if I can tell you a little bit about the photos, you know, to advancing the story. There have been like key moments, I believe. No, there is a photo of the kids with the skateboard. One of the first workshops that we did. One of them is the son of Vicente, by the way. We were, you know, I was also a skateboarder when I was a kid, and I always had to convince my mom to get me a skateboard. And it was really transformational for me to think about that these kids, they don't need to ask Vicente for a skateboard. He can just make the skateboard, right? So that was like a very early workshops that we did. In the middle, you see the same photo that Neil showed before. He was planning of the Fab Academy in 2008. At the top left is one of the very first big workshops, the smart geometry workshops, when we put the lab and the full capacity. In the bottom left, we are setting up the first shotbot with Beno and Victor, Aisheshim, Bereketnesh, and Melad. And this was the project of setting up Fab Labs in Lima and also in Addis Abeba. In the center is the workshop with IKEA on setting up the Fab City prototyping in Poblenou. And in the lower right, this is the mobile Fab Lab in Burning Man. And this was a Fab Lab taken to one of the craziest festivals on earth, which we got for free, just because they thought it was cool to have a Fab Lab on Burning Man. And that trip I learned, like I don't know, was one of the most amazing experiences, because I was with Amy's son and Kenny Chung. Amy works or used to work in a very advanced trajectory calculation of certain company I won't mention. And Kenny is just working for NASA, designing long travel spaceships. And I was just sitting in the back with them, learning about what all this world of digital fabrication is. Do you want me to continue with telling about the photos, Vicente?
Yeah, well, whatever you want. Well, I didn't mention, but then this was the official shopbot, the CNC that we in the labs, and this has created a culture. Yeah, but go ahead. Yeah, of course.
No, well, like, I mean, just fast forward. There are things, again, complementary to what you and Neil had been said. No, there is another trajectory. I have to say that same year, when the mayor of Barcelona pressed the button, we also opened the public Fab Lab network of Barcelona. It's thinking Fab Labs about as a public service and as a public infrastructure, which was quite novel by the time. And now cities like Sao Paulo have public networks of 12 Fab Labs, and the one in Barcelona keeps growing thanks to that collaboration that we initiated with the city council. Also, the Fab City, which started as what Neil said, no, it was saying, okay, there should be 40 years until cities produce almost everything they consume. Now it's a foundation. So we created a foundation in Estonia, and in this foundation is going to look on making possible this 40-year roadmap. Now less years already, since 2014, but we are setting up the groundwork in order to make that possible, to really work together between the Fab Lab network and the Fab City network to make possible that vision, no? And to think about all the distributed programs and all the distributed efforts that we need to make globally in order to change our messy industrial model. The upper left picture was one of the key moments also of the Fab City movement. This is at the City Hall of Paris. And that's the head of research of the European Commission with Sherry at the left. Also the mayor of Paris in the Fab City Summit. And we have cities, big cities like Paris or Amsterdam engaging into this roadmap, but also now working with smaller cities and also towns and villages. And just finally, now that you give me like a full speed to continue, this is a timeline that we organized when we celebrated the 10 years of a Fab Lab, no? Which has been built from many efforts. I think like Lucas I think he attended Fab 3. He was the first one that attended on behalf of IAAC to the Fab conference in South Africa. I attended Fab 4. And then ever since we have been, building up, as Neil was saying, like, moving the goal and creating crazy projects together with the IAAC community. but also creating some projects like probably Guillem is going to talk to you a bit about later on, like the Smart Citizen project, and also thinking as Fab Barcelona, not only as just a fabrication, but also doing research, innovation, and education. And as you said, you know, for 20 more years, or at least until 2054, for sure. I can say that.
Yeah, we need to see if we were right or not. Tomas,
thank you
very much. We'll see many of the projects you are leading also with people from your team. I think we have Greg Lynn here because he had a problem with you. Greg, are you here?
I am. Hey, Vicente.
Hey, Greg. Sorry, I did a kind of short introduction of about you. Maybe you can talk like 3 minutes, saying something you remember at the beginning of IAAC, the prefix machine, our collaborations, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for a birthday, it's always good to tell embarrassing stories about kids when they're 20, especially. And usually it involves how they're different or what makes them unique. And for me, I've always loved IAAC and loved the teaching team and the founders and the students. It's been a very unique place. And so everything you have there is really showing how, let's say, everyone except IAAC was thinking about digital fabrication. They were thinking about how you need to build a lab, who had the most axes on their robot, who had the biggest robot, who could do the biggest object, you know, what was the, you know, the right machine to get. And so there were an explosion of labs. I mean, for me, it started at the ETH and UCLA, but more and more you were seeing these labs everywhere. And I know, you know, talking to Vicente and Willy and Manuel and Enric, there were conversations about what machines to get. And then I came to Barcelona and saw the situation and was amazed by several things and things that have already been discussed. But one was that the focus on fabrication involved thinking about renewable materials and thinking about building molds for making things rather than just trying to build the final components. It involved thinking about the lab being mobile, which you were just talking about. So how do you get a robot on a site? And what can a robot do on site? And how could that be deployed in a process of construction also with laborers? So, I mean, you can see like the blob wall, it's easy to cut a bunch of unique plastic bricks. It's incredibly labor intensive to put those together and weld them together. And those kinds of problems were being thought at IAAC before anywhere else. Like how do humans and their labor practices interface with machines and their fabrication processes? And then how do raw materials in the natural environment fit in both of those? And it was very unique. And frankly, because of the initiatives in Barcelona and the way the city was being thought about in terms of energy, in terms of culture, in terms of the legacy of construction with some of the work that, you know, Mark was doing and Jane were doing with Gaudi, there was this kind of intersection of so much stuff that made digital fabrication not just some, you know, some room in the basement or some warehouse adjacent to the school where experiments were being done. It actually was looking at the labor, the materials, the concern for sustainability, and also I would say the Fab Lab and the kind of desktop environment of thinking about how things would be fabricated in a more open way was also being applied to the heavy equipment in the digital fabrication lab. So and it's evolved. So chemistry and biology and methods of construction, all of this stuff was really being done at IAAC before anywhere else. And I think it's very important to recognize that difference and to then track where it's all gone now 20 years later. So thanks for inviting me to the party. Happy birthday. And, IAAC's been like one of the great young kids that did things very differently and did it in a way that's having a big effect on a lot of other places to start to think about environment and culture and sustainability while they think about digital fabrication. So happy birthday.
Thank you, Greg. We always admire you and you help us a lot. And another key person was Betsky, that has been our friend for many, many years. And we had the chance that in the year 2008, he was elected as curator for the Ibañez Biennale of Architecture. And then he invited us to develop a project. Aaron, are you there?
Yes, I am here. I was going to show some of my own image, or do you want to just stay with this?
No, I will stay with this because I am managing things. So I have only 3 screens that are the Venice Biennale, the construction, and the final images. So
okay, that's fine. Good evening, everyone. Thank you also, Vicente, for inviting me. I realize that I have known IAAC indeed almost as long as I have known Leon, your son. But then again, I think they're almost the same age. I think Leon's only 2 or 3 years older. It is fantastic to see IAAC flourishing. I can't top all of Greg's compliments. All I can say is I wonder where the cake is. Excuse me, sorry, frog in my throat. I wonder where the cake is, because some of you also know that I have a very bad sweet tooth, so I want that cake. What to me is very important about IAAC is to, again, continue on what Greg was saying, that it has looked at the way in which technology can, in a very critical manner, allow human beings to take charge of their environment and to allow, and in fact, that was the question that I asked of the participants in the Venice Biennale in 2008, namely, how is it that we can take those systems which are of a technological nature that control our lives, but that are so embedded in all of the systems around us that we can barely ever see them. How can we reveal them? And how can we use that act of revolution as a way to redesign them and to allow them to enable us to make ourselves at home in the modern world? I'm sorry that my voice is suddenly doing such strange things. I do apologize. So how, in fact, through design, we can make this technologically formed world our own. And Vicente and IAAC answered to that by asking us to concentrate on the Internet 2.0, the embedding of technological systems and of communication in the objects, implements, and images of everyday life. They created an installation that was fabricated in Barcelona and then brought to Venice that consisted of completely transparent artifacts that thus highlighted that it was impossible now through the agency of design to hide the social and technological relations embedded in those artifacts. And then they created addresses that allowed people to manipulate those artifacts from anywhere in the world. The best part was, of course, the party that they organized before the opening, which you're seeing here, in which the IAAC students had to do double duties, not just as designers and fabricators, but also as DJs, actors, and dancers who danced alive this installation over a 24-hour period, allowing these amazing images to appear. For me, it was a real emblem of the kind of work of which IAAC was, and even more today, is possible. And I have to say that I still think that IAAC is a vital part of the research and development arm of our design world. It needs to be an even more vital part. It needs to be more integrated into the academic and research structures all around the world. And Enric and I certainly aim to start by making it more integrated with the work we're doing here at Virginia Tech. So again, all my congratulations to everyone at IAAC. I don't think you're all grown up yet. I think you are still, I hope at least, that you're still playful at heart, and that you will continue to find ways in which we can redesign technology so that it can not only be a critical catalyst that allows us to be at home in the modern world, but that it also is something that we can dance to.
Thank you. 5 minutes sharp. Aaron, you are a super professional. So you can see here in these pictures, Tomas, Areti, Daniel, Victor Viña, and other people. I mean, it was true that we were working like a hell. And the night before we delivered, we did some pictures. It was the biggest installation of the so-called Internet Zero until that moment. I don't know if there was any other installation of this technology that was developed by Neil and the colleagues later, but it was really an incredible work that we are happy to share. So around that time is the moment when we did another kind of crazy thing that is started by Daura. That is, we started to work on the Fab Lab house. We wanted to do some solar buildings, and then we wanted to research on the nature. And then I knew Meg, that she's the director of the Tree Foundation. And then we invite her to come to Daura and to conduct a first workshop. Meg, are you there?
I am. Thank you so much. Vicente, what an honor. It's great to see you, and thanks for the invitation, both 10 years ago and now. Aaron set me up nicely by saying, you know what, we need to be playful at heart, because maybe everybody climbs trees at some point in his or her life, and because we all descended from ancestors that lived in the trees, that's a good thing as well. So my whole life has been, as pictured behind me here in the Amazon treetops, the exploration and science of trees. So it certainly made sense to work with Vicente a little bit on the amazing history of architecture, trees. Barcelona, Catalonia, of course, has the absolute premier location for any architects who are interested in trees. So I spent part of a summer helping students go out in the field at your location and rediscover nature, which was really, really wonderful. And we had a back to nature exercise. We climbed the trees, we designed tree houses, we designed trails through the treetops. They used the materials of nature to make their constructions, and it was quite a fabulous workshop overlooking the city up in the beautiful hillsides outside of Barcelona. So that was really fantastic. And I think underlying this exercise, Vicente and I certainly would look back and say, you know, people need to be thinking harder about trees as part of architecture and forests. In my world of a professional arbornaut, which is what I am one of the first people that explores the tops of trees. We now know that half of the rainforests of the world have disappeared in my lifetime, which maybe is almost the same age as Vicente, maybe not. But in that world of the forest, 50% of the species on Earth live in the tops of trees. So we're destroying this extraordinary genetic library, and architecture can bring trees back to life. Students need to learn about why forests and nature are important for both architecture and survival of humans as a species. And I think we need leadership in all arenas to really love and treasure big trees. It's no good to just plant trees. It's really important to keep the kinds of trees that you see here in these pictures, because those are the ones that store carbon. Those are the ones that house bird nests and biodiversity. The little seedlings take decades and decades to catch up to that. So what will be the next 20 years? I hope that all of you will play your part in turning this planet of ours around. We can't possibly endure more fires in our forests and more clearing and more loss of biodiversity. So I think it's up to Vicente and all of you as leaders in this program to make sure that your students really have an intimate understanding of nature and why it's important, both as a backdrop to architecture and perhaps integrated into architecture. And I am ready to come over and live in a treehouse with you, Vicente, and all of your faculty if you think we should do that. But with that, my role will be quite short. Oh yes, I forgot to mention a few things here. I'm now embarking on building Canopy Walkways in the highest biodiversity forests of the world as a way to save them. Thanks, Vicente, for grabbing these pictures off my website. But the lower left is a new walkway in Malaysia, which is now going to create a whole UNESCO World Heritage Site around that forest. The walkway on the right is another student research project in Taiwan, which has some of the absolute tallest trees of the world. And the top left, you'll have to tell me, Vicente, where you took that one. Is that your location?
No, yeah, this is our location.
Fantastic area.
Yeah, had been taken by one friend that is architect, pilot of an Spanish airline, and also photographer, and he takes these kind of photos. Well, the incredible thing, Meg, I mentioned in an email, is that IAAC do many things, and now we are member of the European Forest Institute, and then we got for Barcelona to be European Forest City for 2022. So that means that we need to work, we are working with the metropolitan area of Barcelona. You see that picture, because the center of the metropolitan area is a forest. This is very unique. And Valldaura is in this center. And obviously we will love that next year, students that will be living in Valldaura, that right now we have some students living there, will be developing some projects with you to celebrate that we are not only grow, I mean, we grow every kind of things, and we grow nature, and we want to learn from forest. Yeah. Yes. Will you join us? Will you join us?
Absolutely, I will. And I think we need a beautiful canopy walkway in that site that's circled there in red. It would be a fantastic way to celebrate 2022 for your region. So count on me. I look forward. Thank you so much.
Meg, thank you very much. You have been always very inspirational for us. And well, see you later, at least next October at the opening of the New Year's Master.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Meg. And now we are in right to the year 2010, when we were presenting the Fab Lab house. If you have seen the video of Lucas Cappelli, there is something incredible, because, you know, with the competitions, we learn who is around us, and we discover good people around the world, because the award for that competition that we start with launch with Lucas is to make a master at IAAC. What has been incredible. It was very useful for us. So the winners of the third year were Daniel and Rodrigo with some French guy, and that's why Daniel joined us. So Daniel, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So Daniel, you are now finishing the PhD in you are living near Neil, But in the year 2008, we decided to make to apply to the solar decathlon that was developed in Madrid. And then we started with this project that was an incredible experience for many people. So can you remember what memories about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Super happy to be here. Let me also start with a quick anecdote on the Lucas Cappelli's front. I remember that after submitting the competition, the first interaction I ever had with IAAC was Lucas Cappelli giving me a phone call and saying like, have you submitted a competition for the self-sufficient housing? I say, yes. Did you design this just for this competition, or are you recycling another type of project? Because it's so highly developed that we have some doubt if this is an original material. And I said like, yes, I did. You know, this was like a collective work that we created only for that. And then Lucas Cappelli said, oh, okay, thank you, thank you. After that, I thought we will never, ever, we're gonna win, but we ended up winning. And, you know, the rest of history, we spent like a wonderful years in Barcelona. And, you know, even now from the US, kind of like East Coast, I follow very closely and I engage at many different levels also with the IAAC. So it's also a pleasure to be here to celebrate this anniversary. So let me turn to the Fab Lab house. You know, many of the things that we have been discussing thus far in the history of IAAC had to do also with, you know, great discourses, a lot of people, new technological opportunities, critical, let's say, social and ecological paradigms that are happening and unfolding around us. So at the end of the day, while we at the IAAC have loved always to engage with other disciplines and be very extra disciplinary, and that's why you see this collection of, you know, fantastic people from all different kind of like disciplines, we always wanted to also bring it a little bit closer to the discipline of architecture. And in that sense, the role of doing these buildings, doing these prototypes, not very much as a kind of like a final product, but mostly as a kind of like a, you know, testing products that come out of a lab, very much in the sense of what Artur Serra was defining. You know, for us, we always treated this as an opportunity to learn and to change the paradigm and to show the world that, you know, the way we do things might be okay, but there are always alternative, you know, roads that has not been taken that we need to kind of like push forward. So as part of that, you know, this project was, you know, in a way, the convergence of many different ideas, you know, ideas of sustainability, ideas of ecology. We, for the first time, did a prototype was built with using mass timber, which now has become a very, very important agenda, kind of like worldwide, saying like, well, if we are doing a solar house, and a solar house is basically you know, driving and taking its energy from the sun, we need to also use a solar material, a renewable material like timber. So this has also generated a kind of line of work at IAAC, very, very important, but also, you know, taking questions of energy, taking manufacturing, probably one of the first curved solar panels, flexible solar panels with the highest efficiency at the time. We managed to reach like 21%, which was also a great opportunity and a great kind of like experimentation. But if I have to highlight, you know, one or two aspects that to me are critical about this project, was this idea of the learning by making, right? I mean, instead of being trained and training our student in the kind of like traditional way of like, you know, drawing and being not in touch with the material reality, not being in touch with the means of fabricating, this project was really the opposite. It was done by us, it was done with our hands, it was done with mostly with our machines, with our people, with our labor. So this was a kind of like a, you know, educational and life experience that probably, you know, many of us that were involved there will kind of like never forget. So the other thing I want to say about this before you move forward, Vicente, is also the fact that, you know, at IAAC we have also this role of being a little bit insurgent. We want to always kind of like destabilize the status quo, try to put things that are provocative, that are, you know, game changers, with the hope that these are going to be triggering certain forms of change. And I have to say, you know, now looking retroactively 10 years or almost 11 years after the Fab Lab house, this is now obvious that, you know, what we were doing there, it has opened up like so many lines of work across many different levels. So I love that spirit of the insurgent architects that we are also cultivating at IAAC. A kind of follow-up project that came a few years later after the Fab Lab house was also the Endesa Pavilion. You know, when Vicente and Willy took, you know, certain roles in power in the city of Barcelona, we managed to get, you know, some of these other projects to have visibility as well in Barcelona. So this was example that I would describe as, you know, having a very much the same concepts, ideas than the Fab Lab house, but just basically being developed to be part of a collective housing. This was not so much thought to be a standalone, isolated housing unit, but rather as a kind of like facade system that any building in any, you know, block of the Barcelona ensemble or any building around, you know, the world could basically plug these devices that were providing shadow, but also harvesting the energy. It was both a passive and an active, you know, mechanism that could enable this thing. This was a project, you know, also important. And just to finalize, you know, the kind of like implications of this line of work is that together with Vicente and with the fact that we, you know, have this amazing place that is Valldaura, we have tried to kind of like keep harvesting that line of work of the idea of prototyping, of the idea of learning by making. This is, for instance, the result of the work of our students last year in the Master in Advanced Ecological Buildings and Biocities, where basically it's a master on the topics I just mentioned, but with one fantastic thing, which is that the students finalize their studies with us there, spending the last 3 to 4 months building by themselves a prototype. And this, what you see here, is the first building that we have done using mass timber. This is like, you know, panels of cross-laminated timber that we not only harvested by, you know, using trees from the sustainable forest management of the forest of Valldaura, but really, you know, processing them, pressing them in the CLT plant that we have, fabricating our own panels, assemble them, using them, leaving them, testing them. So in a way, we feel that this is probably the very best educational experience we can ever provide, when our students could control the entire process with the entire supply chain, the entire, you know, value chain. So what it takes to, you know, envision something, give form to something, and at the end of the day, being able to fabricate, you know, with these ecological, sustainable principles and have it materialize. So, you know, super excited to have been part in different intensities at different moments of this history of IAAC. And I'm absolutely excited of seeing what the future brings. You know, this is, I agree with many of the previous comments, this is just the beginning. I'm pretty sure that the next 10 years are going to be as exciting as the first 20. Thank you, Vicente.
Thank you, Daniel. So yeah, we go ahead because now we arrive, I would say, to a new generation of people, a bit younger, that arrive a bit later. And then Guillem was a designer at that time. He didn't have barb, I think. And now he's a fundamental person, part of the team working in the Fab Lab. And then he was one of the leading persons working on the Smart Citizen. Daniel, are you there? Guillem, are you there?
Yes, thank you, Vicente, for inviting me, and I'm super glad to be here. I remember the first time I came inside IAAC, it was the 10-year anniversary, because there was a big poster saying that in the bottom of the main conference hall table. So it means I've been here already for 10 years. And so it's like kind of I go with the 10 years anniversaries. So I came here actually just randomly because my brother, he was part of the Fab Kids at Fab Barcelona, and know Vicente well. I was abroad in Berlin, and suddenly I arrived one day here. And I was amazed by that space because actually, it wasn't the best workshop I ever seen, but it was a place where you didn't need to ask permission to do things. And that was better than any other workshop at the end, right? And so actually Vicente asked me to help to build the Fab Lab House interface. That's why I started to work here. But I'm here actually to talk about one project in particular that in a way, it had helped to grow the Fab Lab, not because of the project, but because what the project teaches us. So back in 2011, in the Fab Lab, we're questioning ourselves what a smart city was, right? Like if you remember 2011 is that time where everyone was like, okay, there's something new coming. It's called a smart city. You should follow it. And actually, from the interest of Tomas Diez, director of the Fab Lab, we basically started to do different projects around it. There was the Smart Geometry project where Luis Fraguada and Felipe Passeguero and Tomas participated. They built some prototypes around this idea of how we start to hack the smart city idea. It went there to the MAA first term studio with Rector Marco Polo and Tomas. And in there we started to actually to be sure that the best way to actually test a smart city idea was to build it by our own. And so we started actually to work into assembling our own low-cost sensors, our own platforms for actually collecting data and the methodologies to engage people to do so. And that's how that project emerged. And I think that the biggest question at the beginning was to ask ourselves if actually Fab Labs could produce data, no? And in a way was actually, okay, if a Fab Lab could produce a chair, if a Fab Lab empowers people to actually produce whatever they want, this idea of how to make almost anything, it should actually also empower citizens to collect data. And that's how the Fab Lab actually started to focus on this idea. I think it was super interesting as a project itself for the idea that it was the first time that actually we went to scale things into a context that was not, you know, like IAAC or the IAAC neighborhood or an exhibition space. It's one of the first projects where we had an idea and we made a crowdfunding campaign first in Goteo, launched it in Barcelona, then scale it globally through Kickstarter, work with citizens in Amsterdam. And from this, which I'm talking about 2011 till now, thousands of citizens, hundreds of initiatives, we could say, have participated on that project. And I think this also teaches us about actually testing things in the real world for the good and for the bad. And this is super important because it's super easy to hide yourself on a video and a render. But when you go to work with the real world, and especially when you are designing technology to be in people's houses, that's something complex. I think on this idea, moving away from the prototype and moving away from the mock-up, and even I would say in a way, I don't want to sound bad, but moving away also from the discipline of, let's say, architectural construction, it can help also a lot the Fab Lab to show ourselves, okay, we could build professional software and hardware, no? And it's one of the projects that has helped the Fab Lab and IAAC to say, look, we could compete with the industry. We have talent to do so. At the same time, that it has shown us that sometimes you start projects where actually no one believes what you are doing. And so when you were with this idea, okay, we are empowering communities to better understand their environment. We are building an alternative, let's say, to a centralized data production means of the smart city. And when we were saying this in 2011, 12, even 13, it was difficult for people to catch up with us. And what's shown is that we're moving maybe a little bit, let's say, forward ahead of our time. And that's been super strategic for the Fab Lab because suddenly when the European Commission set on their policies, look, it's over about making top-down smart cities. They want bottom-up smart cities. IAAC was ready with something to actually capitalize that funding. And that's actually how IAAC started to capitalize European research funding and how actually the Fab Lab play a key role on that. And so far, we've done 25 European projects, research projects. We raised around 7.5 million projects just on that. And we are now running about 15 active research projects on different fields, not just this one about sensing smart cities, citizen engagement. And just to finish, I'd say I'm really happy because Tomas started it. I took it for many years. I'm not anymore the owner. There's more people on the team who are the owners now, and also shows the growth of the Fab Lab, from being in a small one-man show or two people show into now a more than 30 people staff team here at the Institute for Advanced Architecture. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Guillem. You will be back taking the place of Mara. But we go ahead with Enric. Enric Ruiz, he was another of the person that was in the of the initial thing with the media house at the beginning of the master. Now he's a great architect. He's teaching in Virginia, also with Sharon. So Enric, you start to teach when we moved to the city council, that group that we call the self-sufficient buildings, and then obviously you had the opportunity to build that the Mediathek in Barcelona that was awarded as the best building in the year 2000 something in the World Architecture Festival. So what are your thoughts about IAAC now that you have also the American experience and the Barcelona's experience?
Thank you, thank you. Well, it's a for sure happy birthday. 20 years is a strong milestone. I think when we started Metapolis, we were fighting strongly in the city of Barcelona for our generation in a collective way to be successful towards our society and to build those buildings and those architectural components that we were sharing from IAAC. So yeah, Mediatek is the result of that. Is that one of, it puts together Vilanurs and other projects that makes this strong and committed. To me, the studio was very important. You know, IAAC is about inception. So it takes 11 years to produce the Media ICT building, the Mediatek, but then you have like 3 days to produce the inception into our students. The scale is about buildings. Buildings are 40% of the CO2 emissions. You know, like if we want green activism, we have to start addressing net zero buildings. So, but buildings that also address the idea of mobility and food and energy production. So we started engaging our students in the idea that their scenario of work is Barcelona. So this is the work of students who are introducing the idea that sound can produce landscapes, so soundscapes, and those soundscapes are starting to produce energy maps, and those energy maps start to produce a new idea of our territory in the city. And this big photo here on the left is why don't we start to think that IAAC needs a headquarters, a new building, a new space, a new condition. And I say this because I think there's some board members, no, of the board of the IAAC. So I want to say this loud. It's interesting that if we activate our students and our faculty with a new space, a new context, a new condition, a new scenario, education always makes this learning curve. Our students have been invited to design this campus, these universities, but also the idea of retrofitting communities, our streets, the shop where we buy our bread, and we were trying to help them in retrofitting their shops, their business, their startups. I think it's about this idea of global warming scenarios. We are turning our students into activists, architects as activists. I think this is, when we started this, it was a bit activist, but of course now we need this. So I embark Metapolis to join my friends and to learn from each other. And now it's about turning these students into activists right after IAAC to turn our, yes, radical, but not to make it a radical dystopia, but to make it our radical, you know, into a democratic way. The same way Ferran Adrià has changed the food industry, looking at supermarkets and making our radical cuisine into our everyday best food. I think that maybe in the next years we can start to cross-populate and pollinate these ideas into a massive scale. And just to conclude, maybe the idea that we are a tribe, no, we are a tribe celebrating our happy birthday, means that we were in Arcosanti, where Paolo Soleri was activating that tribe to change the world. IAAC is really a parallel to the Watermill Center with Bob Wilson to change the world of theater, like El Bulli Foundation to change the world in food. So IAAC resonates there, like Taliesin with Fran Joy Wright, in the way of changing our culture, but making it lead by our society. So this idea, I think, is what makes us together. Yes. So is that a good answer for you, Vicente? That makes
sense. This is perfect answer. We need to see what we do together with Virginia now that you are there with Aaron. Yeah. And yeah, we admire very much your work and congratulations. And let's keep working. Let's keep working. Thank you very much.
We need a new headquarters, a new buildings. We need this or no? What do you think?
We are on that. We are on that. Yeah.
Okay, good.
After 20 years, we are on that. Yeah. Thank you. Take care.
Oh, thank you all. It's great to be here.
So now we are moving ahead with Luciana. We start the Fab Academy in 2008 in that event that we start in Barcelona with that meeting, the year that the Fab meeting should happen in India, but it was kind of postponed. So we had that opportunity to meet there, and then we start, I think, the Fab Academy on 2009. But the first kind of global coordinator was Luciana, that took the position of Tomas. And then Luciana, can you share your experience during all this time working always with Neil? Well, I need to say that I admire Neil because every class that I have seen during the last 10 years, he was always so focused and so enthusiastic with the students. So it's kind of amazing, no? So Luciana, what is your experience?
Thank you, Vicente. Good night, everyone. I actually entered IAAC 8 years ago in 2013. That's when Tomas invited me to help him coordinate the Fab 10 event, the global annual conference of Fab Labs. And this is when I personally got to see the power of the Fab Lab network all comprised in one place. So I sort of decided to keep on working with him, closer to him. And the first assignment I got was to precisely take care of Fab Academy. Back then, it was run by Neil, of course, but with the support of Tomas and Ana Casiunas. And in the years that I entered to this team, the Fab Academy doubled in students. Between 2014 and 2015, it did a massive jump. And it was clear and obvious that it needed dedicated support and coordination. And this is why I started to work more closely with it and well, also getting the support of Fab Lab Barcelona to do it. Nowadays, we have a course of 250 students globally every year, distributed throughout 60 to 70 Fab Labs throughout the world, which is quite amazing. Fab Academy, it's part of the Fab Lab network, and I dare to say is one of the many driving forces of this network because of all of the synergies and the connections that triggers this fact of having a common experience at the same time. Fab Academy teaches applications and implications of digital fabrication in a distributed way. In this, we've been pioneering both globally and locally in Fab Lab Barcelona, this idea of distributed education, as Neil mentioned at the beginning, something that nowadays is sort of rediscovered due to the pandemic restrictions and in physical interaction, but we've been doing this for many years. We are a global team of teachers and students and practitioners who work in the many layers of interaction locally and regionally and globally, all of us to fulfill our goal, which is distributing knowledge and empowering individuals and communities to make almost anything, and through making, creating social, economic, and even political impact. So I dare to say that this course is the DNA of what we do with citizen engagement, and I think that is also the heart of Fab Lab Barcelona and IAAC.
So this is one pictures of the graduation. Here in the right, we can see the first graduation. Tomas shared that picture. I think that first year I say to Neil, well, I will be acting as producer. You are the director, but I will make, we bought the computer, we organized somehow the coordination of everything. And then this was just the first generation of people. And now every year we celebrate incredible parties with hundreds of people that are graduating.
We have an alumni community of over 1,000 students that passed and graduated from Fab Academy. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, what I am expecting, and this is something I always say to Neil, is we are expecting to see companies that are created by these people in order to prove that we are not only prototyping the future, but we are really making the future. We are building the future. We are reindustrialization the future, no? So Luciana, thank you very much for your great contribution to Fab Lab Network and to IAAC. And now we move to Sherry Lassiter. Sherry, that has been in the Fab, she's the president of the Fab Foundation, and she has been the soul behind IL and helping all of this happening. So Sherry was here when we, in Barcelona, when in 2014, we did the Fab 10. So what you can say about your experience with IAAC, Sherry, and all these years working together?
Well, it has been quite an adventure. I just wanted to say, though, it's an honor and a privilege to be here to celebrate with you. And it's so wonderful to see all of our friends and partners over the years here celebrating with you. Congratulations on 20 remarkable years. Fab 2014 was a pretty extraordinary year, if I remember correctly. We, along with CBA and IAAC and a few other organizations, hosted Fab 10, which was the global gathering of the Fab Lab network. Now, you know, IAAC had been a partner, as you know, since like 2001. I remember Vicente walking into our lab at MIT, and you know, I was used to seeing lots of equations go up on the board during lunchtime when our group would meet, and sort of getting glassy-eyed because they were all integral equations or this, that, or the other, and I didn't understand anything. And then Vicente and his team came in and it was like, wow, so this is really how you apply all of that mathematics, et cetera, et cetera. And so right from day one, it was you all were inspiration, Vicente, and you've been a close partner and leader in this network where you have emerging, inspiring ideas, but they're not just ideas and concepts. You actually make them happen. So as you were saying, you build the future, you make it a reality. For traditionally Fab conferences, we would choose one place in the world that was unique, that had a very special, had a very special new sort of network growing of Fab Labs. And it was a few hundred people, who were fabricators and researchers and engineers and scientists, a very sort of internal crowd, working out what we thought the future of digital fabrication might look like, right? And how it might impact the world. But in Fab 10, they just blew it out of the water. This is when we went public, in essence, right? So we went from a small conference of a few hundred people to a conference that had more than 1,000 participants just in the week-long content. But then we also had a Fab Festival and opened it up to the whole city of Barcelona. And we had thousands of young people and families come through and visit and make things and be inspired by the work that was happening. You guys hosted this, it was the first time we'd ever done the Fab Festival. And it was wonderful because rather than bringing the people to the lab, what you did is you brought the lab to the people. You built a super Fab Lab, like 10 different Fab Labs basically in one space. It was in a very public, beautiful space, a museum. And we opened it up to the world as well. We opened up the conference to makers and researchers and fabricators all over the world, rather than just our own small, sort of growing, but small community. And, children were able to come, the public was able to come, researchers, business, government, that was all actually very unusual. And you showed the world what was possible, right, with digital fabrication, from art to architecture to fashion to open source transportation, humanitarian aid, business incubation, citizen science, and of course, sustainable communities. So you brought together the engineers and researchers and scientists and architects and humanitarians, but you also brought in the World Bank. you brought in USAID, you brought in the city of Barcelona, the city council. And so it was a whole new world of stakeholders, you know, public-private partnerships. We had new networks, new networks that were starting to converge and emerge from Africa, from Asia. It was truly extraordinary. And this is also the time and the place where the Fab City Challenge launched, basically. So this is, as you've heard, for Barcelona's 40-year roadmap to becoming a sustainable city, a self-sufficient city. And it inspired the following 7, 8, 10 years, at this point about 7 or 8 years, you know, of research and of public-private partnerships and of new kinds of partnerships coming into being, like makers and fabbers and governments and researchers all working together, you know, to create this future, a sustainable planet, a sustainable city. You opened a network of Fab Labs during this conference to the public. That was the first time we'd ever seen that. And it was government supported and very much targeted to community needs. You know, that was the idea. This is also when the Fab Lab Valdara, the beautiful green Fab Lab, which is dedicated to, you know, sustainable living and sustainable production, came into being. And just it was extraordinary. And this was also the first time the Fab Foundation. So I run the Fab Foundation outside of MIT, but I also continue to work with Neil and his team at MIT to build this network, to you know, realize the potential of digital fabrication in the world. And so this was our first time hosting a conference. And the conference will never be the same. It never was the same after that. Fab 10 really modeled the new path forward for the network, and the conferences have not been the same since. It added, the conference is amazing. It's, as Vicente said before, you know, it took a lot of work, a lot of people, a lot of organizations to do it. And it was a labor of love, or it was a hell of a lot of work, is really, I think, the way that Vicente put it. But at any rate, just wanted to say congratulations to you, IAAC, for 20 years of inspiration, of action, and of impact. And I look forward to the next 20 years, because you're sure to take us on an incredibly inspiring journey into the future. So congratulations, happy birthday.
Thank you, Sherry. In fact, we were really, we want to be here on 54 to see what happened at the end of the countdown. In fact, I never explained that I was working at that time in the city council, and I had always this strange situation being supporting the event, but then not able to run it. And the person that got this space in the hub, in the Museum of Design, was Tomas, because I wanted to do the event in another place that was completely wrong. It would be a disaster. And then with somebody's smart move, Tomas was able to get this space and to organize this super lab in this incredible place. So yeah, I think that was a very fantastic. Barcelona is a place where we change the events, no? It happened already with the Olympic Games in the '92. I think it happened with the Fab meetings, and we hope will help also with the capital, European city of Torres will help to redefine what these kind of events can be. Following that line, in fact, Aldo, working with the team of Areti and the group, they had the opportunity to redefine and coordinate the Barcelona building Construmat. You know, Construmat is the most important event is a convention on building materials. In the year 2000, in fact, the funny part of the story is that the media house should be in Construmat, because we offered them to make the pavilion of innovation, you know, in the year 2000. But then the economy was booming and saying, no, we sell switch and we sell bricks. We don't want innovation. Why we need innovation? And by the year 2015, Construmat was almost to disappear, very near to disappear because the construction failed after Lehman Brothers crisis and so on. And I think that IAAC helped very much to reinvent what Construmat could be. So Aldo, can you explain what is your experience working under the Areti direction and so on? How was the experience?
Thank you, Vicente, and thanks all the IAAC community for sharing with us this moment of celebration of this trajectory that we all made all together. And the Construmat experience for us was a super important starting point, what it later became also the Master in Robotics and Advanced Construction. But in 2015, in this special edition, it was also a collective moment to represent what innovation is in our network and make it in our style of IAAC. So we decided not only to discuss about innovation, but we also decided to share and distribute this exhibition in a series of corners where we could make innovation. We brought a 6-axis robot that my colleague Alexander Dubor was controlling, shaping beautiful structures in real time. We also brought the very first model of the 3D WASP crane that Massimo Moretti was controlling remotely, locally, in the middle of the exhibition. We also had a corner with Alessio Arioli teaching. But the most beautiful experience for sure was to set up and coordinate all this very complex exhibition where we were receiving a lot of pieces from everywhere, from ETH, from Bartlett, from many schools, even from the US, that decided to share with us what was this manifesto of advanced architecture. And in 2017, we decided to raise the bar. In this occasion, again, I had the pleasure to collaborate with Alexander Dubor in what really became the Master in Robotic and Advanced Construction. It was the shaping of an installation that could produce and make on-site a real manifesto, what can be the concept of advanced construction, shaping and merging complex advanced materials, very advanced systems of manufacturing that we were setting up together with our partners of Tecnalia, and the systems of data collection and data acquisition controlled by drones that we were organizing with the company of Lumina. All the experience of Construmat at the end became, as I said, a very important, I think, starting point of what it became stronger, I think, the third generation of IAAC. So the initiation of this new generation of talented designers, explorers that still are part of our community and are pushing together the boundaries of advanced construction even today.
Aldo, thank you very much. You are also a role model for many people because you have your own company. You are transforming this prototyping into a real, I would say, industry. You are fabricating right now the Spanish pavilion for Dubai using 3D printing and very advanced materials. So thank you for all your effort and for your great contribution to IAAC.
Thanks again.
So here we should have Mara Balestrini because she was doing, she was coordinating one project related, Making Sense, one European project, but she had some problems today. She needs to go to the doctor. And that's why we have asked Guillem to do a kind of introduction about what was this project about, because it has a massive use of the smart citizen. Guillem?
Thank you. I'm back here. So yeah, Making Sense was not the first EU-funded project that the Fab Lab got, but maybe I would say the most important of the first ones. Of course, it was the definitive project that actually teaches us how to do research, and how to do research the way that we actually have followed, which is what in a way we call action research. It's how we combine multiple disciplines. We combine our spirit for creativity, but also our spirit in actually applying quantitative methods to know what we are doing, and most important, that we work in the real world. And Making Sense, it's a project where we actually we put it together to give us to let's say to find an answer after say 3-4 years of running the Smart Citizen project. Actually, we found out that yeah, the technology was there. We were shipping kits all over the world, but people was not actually engaging into this idea that I should put a sensor in my balcony, collect data, and do something with it. Because of course the narrative was extremely poor, and there were no methods actually to engage people into that. And so we set together a research project to try to solve that question. And we basically, in a way, trying to demonstrate if it was actually possible to empower citizens to collect, let's say, bottom-up scientific data and to trigger participation and not just participation action. So I don't want to complain. I have the data, I want to complain, and I want to change. And how I actually involve all the stakeholders on this. No? And I think the most important thing of this project, as I said before, is that it had several pilots across Europe, 3 in Barcelona, but 1 was in Plaça del Sol. And for the ones that know Barcelona and know Plaça del Sol, it's kind of an historical place where there's issues around noise related to basically, let's say, evening leisure. So people going there and the coffees to drink and to have fun in the evening. So long story short, we basically had to put the Fab Lab not anymore in, oh, we make something cool, or here is something new. No, into actually going hands-on, working with citizens, taking all the risks that means actually developing things for people which is suffering an issue, developing the methodologies to see how people actually engage, to quantify together a problem they are suffering, and to moving from this more qualitative approach they had before of I am complaining because there's something wrong, into a collective quantitative approach and into an action. No? And we came out with this idea we always said about we sense, we measure, we create awareness, and then finally we trigger action. No, we create action. And I think the project it's successful by default because it has helped a lot to scale Smart Citizen, but more importantly, it has helped the Fab Lab to find a way about how to do research, which is research that works on the field, which works with communities, which doesn't hide technology, which takes the risk of actually testing with the unknown, let's say. And the result of it, of the Making Sense project, it's the citizen science, the Making Sense toolkit, the participatory sensing book, sorry, that actually won the 2019 Ars Electronica Stars Prize, an honorable mention. And now it's used not just by us, but by many institutions around the world who are, let's say, exploring this idea of empowering citizens with technology to look at how to solve local issues. So, and a big, of course, let's say, hack to Mara Balestrini, who she wasn't able to attend, and she was leader of that project, and I learned a lot from them, and I think all the team did.
Thank you, Guillem. And now we move to Matilde, that is head of students of IAAC, and she was one of the leaders in the InnoChain project. So Matilde, how are you?
Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining this celebration. Head of studies, not head of students. So I'm here to talk about the InnoChain project, which represents 2 firsts for IAAC. So actually, under the academic direction of Artur Marco Polo, we were able to move the goalposts, as Neil was saying before, twice. The first was the first time that we actually had PhD candidates within the Institute, and the second first was that it was the first Marie Curie funded project. So Marie Curie actions and innovative training networks drive scientific excellence and innovation. So they bring together universities, research institutes, and other sectors from across the world. And the idea is to train researchers at doctorate level. So the InnoChain project in some way furthers the agenda of IAAC to apply design-based research within a situated context, which allows to ensure on one side a positive impact for our research and development and also the real world, but also pushes innovation within the highest levels of scientific research. So specifically, this network shared a research training environment that examined how digital design tools can challenge building culture, with the end goal of enabling sustainable, informed, and materially smart design solutions. So it was powered by the integration of research and practice, which allows to enable this change, and the investigation of the extended digital chain as a particular opportunity for interdisciplinary design collaboration. So interchain challenges the traditional thinking of design, which is commonly framed as a linear process with an incremental refinement. And we identified within the network 3 main axes for design innovation potential, and these were communicating design, simulation for design, and materializing design. So within this network, we were able to train 15 interdisciplinary researchers with a strong industry focus to affect real change in the way we think, design, and build our physical environment. The project created an interdisciplinary research training which allowed the researchers to be part of and exposed to a multitude of academic and industrial cultures. So the network is created of both 6 academic partners, but also 14 industry partners that are located around Europe and around the world. So through academic training activities, the researchers were able to upskill both in the fields of architecture and engineering, but also through the industry participation and secondments, they were able to sort of plunge into the fields of architecture, engineering, design, software development, and fabrication. And in this way, the researchers were exposed to applied reality of situated research and development across the digital chain. So the project had a fundamental role in consolidating a distributed design research network, which allowed to interchange knowledge and application between the partners, the places, and beyond. This allowed to consolidate a renowned network, which is together shaping the future of design research, in particular with a focus on innovative materials, design and manufacturing cultures within the architectural realm. So we at IAAC had 2 researchers who worked together with the industry partners, Foster and Partners, McNeil, Cloud9, and ROK. And through their experience in the project, the researchers had the opportunity to develop new skills that sit across disciplines and to implement and test these in context within the leading industry partners. So with that, the synergy and exchange that culminated from this research was exhibited through a series of conferences and exhibitions, as you can see on the image here. And the network was incredibly successful. So we generated 7 interchain publications, 3 international exhibitions, 3 international conferences. We were also part of 51 scientific publications, 28 scientific conference presentations, 10 scientific presentations, and 26 industry-focused dissemination activities. So the Interchain project, beyond the consolidation of a network at the forefront of innovation within the digital chain, represented an opportunity or an important stepping stone towards the consolidation of IAAC's own PhD program, together with the Swinburne University of Technology, which Jane Burry will be discussing shortly. So thank you very much, and happy birthday, IAAC. Yay.
Thank you, Matilde, for your incredible work and amazing numbers that you explained. And so now we are moving forward with Alex. You know, there is we were always working with robots at IAAC from the very beginning. Greg, Lynn, as he explained before, was one of our inspiration. We had Marta Malé also, that was fundamental in the history of IAAC, and also Reti take out from it, and also Luis Fraguada was fundamental. But now there is a person that has a lot of focus on top of him. Well, and also with Aldo is Alex Dubord. We never expected that a French person would be able to do what is Alex doing.
Well, the French was very happy to discover IAAC. To be honest, I had the chance to join 10 years ago, more or less at the same time as Guillem Camprodon. He was more as an assistant, me as a student, and then had the chance to stay here in this amazing place. I never seen this before, looking like this. A mix of visionary that see where this can go, with Vicente, Willy, all the family like projecting themselves. At the time there was also Marta, but then there was this crazy laboratory field of machines, and clearly so much potential with Areti and Tomas at this time that was starting to lead various activities, as I worked a bit with everyone in the house and really enjoyed the family. the robot was still standing there, waiting for a bit more love and to push it further. It was still a bit of black box of technologies. So I entered from the small door in IAAC, technicians cleaning behind the robot, making sure that things work, programming the website for smart citizen, doing thousands of things. But what makes us stay here is to discover that this family all together, we're believing in the future of a better architecture, a better city, better technologies, better materials. There was this vision that was just missing to be done, no? And I felt in these 10 years, we succeed to demonstrate in many aspects that we can change the industry around us. In particular, I specialized in what was missing a bit in the lab, that was robotics for construction. We had the chance to create a team together with the people around us here now, but also with Aldo, where we're directing the master in robotics and asset construction. So where we collaborate with industry, we have people like Eteric Studio, Cricursa, Cumeia, Acciona, many companies that are willing to see how the future will be of constructions and looking for these talented people to grow. So we kind of pushed with this master from the industry, asking for more. They wanted more, and they wanted to see if we're capable to deliver. So also as IAAC, we delivered prototypes demonstrating this future. So the team around the mini builders have been amazing to demonstrate it was possible to have this teeny robot printing big objects. Together with Acciona, we demonstrated that 3D printing could be used as infrastructure, so making a bridge in the middle of Madrid. And we've been pushing a lot in this direction. And Tony Cumeia, with whom we've been collaborating a lot, have been an amazing art crafts that we've been developing, showing that we could scale up these teeny tests we're doing in the laboratory to the whole facade of a building in Barcelona, in this case, the Hotel Ola, that we had the chance to produce, listening to music. So it was crazy. We can listen to such new informations and literally print it on the facade of this building. So many experiments. I had the chance to be in contact with at IAAC, and I feel this is the power of IAAC, you know, how we can, let's say, empower people to change the status quo that is happening. A lot of people complain that it's not right, the city is not right, the industry is not right, but we can do much more. That brings me to another collaboration I'm very enjoying to have here at IAAC, and I think I want to thank multiple times all the people, the directors of IAAC, Areti especially, to support us, me and Edward, in this project of the OTF 3D printing in architectures, where we've been demonstrating that it's possible to have natural material, printing buildings that are advanced technology, yet bringing sustainable constructions, affordable housings, and a whole new paradigm in architectures where this computational design could be embedded in very accessible materials. No? So we had amazing experience, and as I heard a lot in these anniversaries, we feel this is just a start. No, we have the feeling that the future is still full of opportunities. People are trusting us now, and we are scaling up. So be aware, IAAC is coming. Thank you very much for organizing this.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. And thank you for all your incredible work. In Baidaro, we want also a robot. So let's talk. Let's talk. We need to do something. Good.
Yes, we'll come soon. Be careful.
So we have now Jane, because part of the work of Manuel first, that was our first doctor, PhD, and also Areti, now that she got the PhD, and also Matilde is to insist on the need to develop a PhD program, and we are doing this in collaboration with an Australian university, and we have here Jane that can be talking a bit more about this. Hello, Jane, how are you?
Hi, happy birthday, and thank you very much for the invitation to the party. It's been absolutely fascinating morning for me, evening for you.
What time
20
is it
years
now? What is
now it's already 6 o'clock, but you started at 4 a.m.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. So 20 years young, and I don't think that's because there's a portrait in the attic aging away. I think there's something really extraordinary about the chemistry at IAAC that just keeps, it's so vital and so passionate, and it's just been an absolute privilege to be associated one way and another over the years. And you spoke about events shaping Barcelona, and Barcelona. I think Barcelona and IAAC have also shaped many events. So the first one I remember was Smart Geometry 2009, which was absolutely pivotal for that organization coming to IAAC and really sort of rolling up the sleeves and engaging in making in that incredible space. So you're super light, agile, constant change. Every year you've shown us something really exciting happening. A couple of years ago, I visited and I was walking around with Areti, and you're literally kind of building the school, literally sort of building the school, and she was supervising the building work while we were talking about how we might collaborate across the world between IAAC and Swinburne. The other sort of interesting thing is that 2001 was also the birthday of SILE in Melbourne. So I can really sort of relate to that time span. And that was bringing Marc's experience of appropriation of programming and aero engineering software at the Sagrada Familia and all the different directions that had spawned back into sort of global practice, but based in Melbourne.
So how do you think the development of the program and this collaboration of this PhD program?
Yeah, this, I think one of your youthful tendencies is outreach to the global community. And the thing about PhDs is I think they really, really benefit from long reflection. We've already had Alex talking about the robotics, Aldo, and these are two of the first PhD candidates in this program. So I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. Mathilde spoke about Inner Chain and the experience there. I know Marc and I, between us, we've supervised now about 50 PhDs, and most of them have gone out to do fairly extraordinary things. I can't really imagine how these PhDs are going to build on the reflective practice of someone like Alex, who's already been involved so much with industry over 9 years at IAAC. So this slide that's up now, what can you gain? What can IAAC gain from a partnership with Swinburne, doing an offshore PhD that the PhD will be awarded through the Swinburne system? I guess what it is something that you guys are incredibly good at, which is also outreach to other disciplines. So Swinburne is one of the leading places for space science. It's a university of technology with the vision of people and technology working together to build a better world. So it's a pretty good synergy, I think, with what we've heard today. Some of the facilities there. So we hope post-pandemic that the PhD cohort will come over to Melbourne and will engage, but whether or not, certainly there will be engagement across the many disciplines with the new materials labs, with the biochemistry, and we've also had the summer school at Swinburne for a couple of years working with the biochemists and the architects to look at growing biological structures. So yeah, fantastic to have that up and running this year. First cohort of 5 students, both Aldo and Alex are in that group. Mathilde and Areti are now supervising following the completion of their own PhDs, and we're just super excited to be on board with that. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah, Jane, thank you very much. We love you, our friends in Australia, in the other part of the world. And thank you for this collaboration that is very exciting. We are, as you know, a small institution that is growing and is very ambitious intellectually. And we are very happy to formalize this education through PhD programs and to be able to attract talented people to work and to study in this collaborative environment. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks.
And we have our last speaker is Areti, that in fact joined IAAC, I think, in 2005. but I propose her to close this speaking because she has been doing many great contributions to the history of IAAC in different forms that some of them has been already mentioned. And so now she's launching at least 2 new initiatives that we didn't talk yet. So yeah, I would like, Areti, that you could share your thoughts and your vision about future of education.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Vicente, for the intro. It's great to celebrate IAAC's 20s. Usually, in another occasion, we would be dizzy from gin and tonics. Now we're a bit fatigued by Zoom after 2.5 hours of event. I think we're all, let's say, enjoying in a different virtual environment. As Vicente said, I am part of this 16 years of the 16 years out of 20 years of history of IAAC. I did came in 2005 to study the Master in Advanced Architecture, the only master at that moment. Actually, we were 11 students. We ended up 9. We lost 2 on the way. We had a travel to Taiwan, and we had some fantastic experience. At that moment, the Master in Advanced Architecture was a master very much directed towards urban design. And it's actually 2006 that I started working at IAAC, initially as academic coordinator. And one of my main tasks and goals was to help and contribute to consolidate IAAC Academy, its impact, but also its growth. And it's a pleasure to be part of this 16 years of history, because it is true that we have started with 1 master's, 11 students, but we have been through a long history of trying to consolidate that academy, from accrediting our masters to launching new second-year programs, postgraduate. A few years later, the Master in City and Technology, which was the second masters of IAAC. And then, today we have actually 6 active masters program and 1 postgraduate program. So the growth has been exponential, and it's also in a way joined not only in terms of master's programs, but also the PhD that Jane very well explained. So in a way, we're now in a kind of a beautiful moment, because we are only 20 years old, but in a way, our impact is as relevant as schools that they have 100 or even more years of history and existence. And I think that this is also like kind of a clear signal of what we can do in the future. And we have been working in these years to set up and launch activities such as international symposiums or exhibitions, and try to consolidate the research, let's say, identity of our educational programs. In a way, part of our strategy was also to expand this academic growth, not only in Barcelona, but also beyond Barcelona. And we have done that in 2 different ways. The first one is basically an initiative that we are building a new international design school in collaboration with the Harbin Institute of Technology and with the Zurich University of the Arts in Shenzhen. So it's going to be a new school with the headquarters in Shenzhen, but also with a big part of the program and activities taking place in Barcelona and in Zurich. So we're testing kind of distributed campuses and programs that go beyond only Barcelona. And of course, today with the pandemic, it is very important to rethink our educational formats beyond physical classrooms. And I think that the pandemic was actually just an excuse to apply what we have been thinking and working for some time, which was the launching of the online educational programs at IAAC. In October, we launched our first online masters, the Master in Advanced Computation for Architecture and Design. It is becoming a kind of a milestone and a reference of trying to see how we can accommodate content, but also explore new ways of interacting and educating and training through a virtual environment. And, you know, when I was first approached in 2006 by Lucas Cappelli, who actually offered me a job at IAAC, and he told me that they were searching for somebody to run the academic coordination. And I was thinking that I was probably not at all appropriate profile for an academic position, but I think that the history of IAAC, the 20 years history of IAAC, has showcased that IAAC deals with education beyond any traditional lines of what education is. We always try to expand, you know, like how we work, how we teach. We integrate research projects, we collaborate with industry, we mix disciplines, we bring people from so many different fields and expertises, and then we are in a way learning together with our students. So we're questioning this kind of top-down approach of one professor teaching things. And I think that this is really fundamental, especially at the moment that we need to rethink education, especially at the moment that we need to take actions, social actions, climate actions within a distributed communication and digital technologies moment. So no more to say apart from looking forward to continue working in that future of architectural education, and for many, many years to come of a successful, let's say, impact of IAAC Academy and IAAC community.
Thank you very much, Areti. Thank you for your words and for your, for your leadership all these years. Because there were 20 years, we invite 20 people, and it was maybe a bit short because we are a bigger family. And that's why we thought that it would be great if we could invite, we could invite some other people to say some words. And this is what you are going to listen here. And with that, we'll finish our event.
Dear IAAC, congratulations, 20 years. I remember I was at the opening, and since then I didn't leave. And we had, in these 20 years, wonderful studies, researches, and publications. I'm looking forward to the next 20 years. Congratulations again.
In 20 years, we've grown in quite a big family around the world. So happy birthday to IAAC and to all the IAACers.
I came to IAAC to do a PhD, and instead I found a family, both the academic and the personal one. I love IAAC not only because it's a vibrant, diverse educational community and all the opportunities and people that I've met there, but mostly because of the warmth and the freedom that the IAAC family shares. I wish to IAAC to continue to grow.
Today we can say that IAAC is one of the best places in the world to envision future and present urban innovation. I think it's a pleasure, a great pleasure to be a part of this family. Congratulations, IAAC.
A big hug to the IAAC community that since 20 years is pushing the boundaries of advanced architecture. Keep inspiring us.
Barcelona, ciao IAAC, wonderful. Congratulations with the 20 years, what a treat. Just wanted to say it's wonderful to work with you. We look very much forward to working with you very soon again. Always a pleasure to be in Barcelona. Ciao.
Since 20 years, IAAC has been growing its own path at the intersection of the physical and the digital world. I wish for the Institute to continue to innovate across a variety of projects. I wish it to play with code, with robotics, with drawings, with architecture, in a warm atmosphere between its students and creative professionals. I wish for the Institute to continue to seduce us and to surprise us.
Dearest IAAC, just stay as amazing as you are. Let us experiment, work, dream, create, be together with faculty and staff. And in the future, I hope we can expand you, IAAC, with a master in structural fabrication, with more of that amazing one-to-one construction and fantastic partnerships.
Dear IAAC friends, congratulations on your 20th anniversary. And here's to many more years of successful partnership. Moltes felicitats on behalf of CIEE.
Desde LECA
y Grid Leca Camba y Laura deseamos a todo el equipo que os sintáis orgullosos de todo el legado construido.
que sigáis inspirando futuros llenos de talento e innovación.
¡Feliz cumpleaños, IAAC! Por muchos más años.
I'm Jonathan Minchin. 10 years ago, I joined IAAC's Green Fab Lab at Vidaura. 10 years from now, we will still be collaborating.
Happy birthday to Institut d'Arquitectura Avançada de Catalunya, an institute which I'm proud to feel close from its very beginning. An institute of architecture which is a light that attracts a multidisciplinary community of practice committed to reflect and take action on the interconnected crisis that we are living, climate emergency, health crisis, and systemic inequity. I wish you the same light and courage for the coming years. You are great. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, IAAC. Thanks for these 6 years working together.
I would like to wish a happy anniversary to everyone who contributed in the success of this institution. It has been a great experience and I look forward to many more years of flawless inspiration.
Para Cerámica como ella es importante moverse entre lo que representan los conceptos de artesanía, oficio, arte, pero conjuntamente con tecnología y vanguardia. Todos estos términos es fácil comentarlos y tratarlos en la IAAC, con la que hace entre 8 y 10 años que colaboramos. Agradezco en gran manera su generosidad, así como valoro la empatía que he encontrado en la IAAC. Felicidades y por muchos años.
Congratulations, IAAC, and all the team. Wish you the best, and for 20 more.
As a UPC representative, it has been an honor for me to participate in the accreditation of the IAAC's educational programs in the field of the innovative, advanced, ecologically and sustainable architecture, inspired by Barcelona, the capital of the architecture and design. Congratulations.
IAAC is undoubtedly one of the schools of architecture that will contribute to change our collective and private living spaces, thanks to the people and enlightened minds that animate it. So congratulations on 20 years of success and those to come. And FAD and Mater FAD will be always available, supporting you.
IAAC is a model for the future of design education, as its DNA transforms complex challenges into constantly evolving research agenda since its very beginning. It is wonderful to work with IAAC as one of the founding partners of CISTI, the Future Shenzhen International School of Design in China.
Hello friends, congratulations for these 20 years. Very proud of sharing part of the way with you. Moltes felicitats.
I wish that IAAC continues to be so inclusive of different cultures, of different people's ideas, way of doing, ways of making. You're doing great.
IAAC Urbinat co-created the technological NPS with our cities and citizens contributing for the NPS debate. We discovered that nature-based solutions can be innovative, inclusive, and beautiful. Thank you to Areti, Chiara, Andrea, Raquel, and all the IAAC team. Congratulations for your 20th anniversary.
Congrats. Been tense, yeah? Happy 20th birthday, IAAC. May you stay forever young.
So thank you to everyone. It has been great to see all of you, and yeah, we keep working. We have a lot of work to do. Bye. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Happy birthday. Happy evening. Bye, ciao. Thank you all.
Come on.
Good night, Vicente. Yeah.
I was here, but it's too late here, so I just switched off my camera. It's pitch dark.
Happy birthday. Nice to see
Bye.
you. Bye.
Hi.
Bye.
Bye.